Hello there, it's Wojtek from EXOR Studios, and today I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to create a basic level for X-Morph defense. I'm gonna show you how to use the basic tools, how to set up some enemy waves, place some decorations and publish the level to SteamWorkshop for others to use. So you launch the level by the play button on Steam. You will see the launch game editor option which you can choose. For today I will use my own shortcut, my own developer version of the level editor, but you should definitely use the Steam launch button, and when you click it you will see that the level editor starts to load with the logo. You will have to wait a bit depending on your hardware. And yeah, when the editor loads, you will see a load level UI window with the recent levels that you worked on. You can see the workshop levels, campaign levels, but today I will show you how to build a level from scratch, so you can dismiss this window. And the first thing that you see is the viewport. It's actually from the top-down perspective. And the first thing that you should familiarize yourself are the basic controls. You can see them in here with this button in the lower left corner, and the camera controls, the scene editor application, and so you can always switch it on and off to help yourself later on when you remember the shortcuts. You won't need to use this. Most of the things regarding the viewport are done with the mouse and the middle mouse button, which is mouse 3. So you can try playing around with this. When you hold the middle mouse button and move the mouse to the sides, you can see how the camera pans to the sides. When you hold the left Alt button on the keyboard and the middle mouse button, you can rotate the view. Those are very important things that you will be using a lot. Also, you can zoom in with your mouse scroll, so means zoom out. And also, one of the most important things to use, very handy, is the Z button. When you click on an entity, right now I'm clicking on the Logic SpawnPoint player. When you click the Z on the keyboard, it zooms into that entity and also sets a rotation around this entity's pivot point. So you can see that right now I'm rotating around this spawn point. Yeah, okay, so those are the basic controls to move around in a viewport. You can see that at the beginning we have some flat plain ground to start with, and two objects. One of them is player spawn point. This is the point from which the player spawns, and you can also see the spawn point core. This imitates the core when it's lying on the ground. The green circle indicates the influence area. In this area the player won't be able to build his own towers, so it's really important when you're planning your level to know how far the influence area extends. Yeah, and those two are the basic two entities that are absolutely necessary to play a level. You need to have a core spawn point and player spawn point in order to play anything. So yeah, and those two objects are already in the level when you start, so you don't need to place them separately. And yeah, in order to play this basic level, you will need to save it, and as usual you save through the file save as prompt. You need to select some kind of a name for your level, so I will use a basic tutorial. That will be the name of my level. Click save, and you'll see that it has been saved. a name. When the level is saved, you should see a name, basic tutorial in here. And what you can actually do right now is to play this level. You don't need anything else. So the best way to play this level is to click this play button here, which saves the level and runs the game. So whenever you make some changes, you can test them quickly in the game by pressing this button. And when you press the button, you see that the level editor is minimized in your toolbox and the game window pops up. For me, I have it in the windowed mode because it's easier this way. You can also see the tabs, and if something goes wrong, it's also easier to turn off the window instead of if you would be running in a full screen. So for development, when I'm working with levels, I definitely prefer using a windowed mode. So yeah, the level loaded, and as you can see, the player has spawned where the player spawn point has been, and we have a core and pretty much nothing else. We have the plain ground, but we can do some shooting, some flying, not much fun, but it indicates that your basic level runs. So yeah, let's move to let's close the window and let's move to the editor again. Let's start setting up some basic gameplay. So in order to have anything playable, you will need some enemies, and in order to have some enemies, you will need to set up spawn points for your enemies. So to do that, we go to the Objects tab. You will see a lot of different tabs where you can modify many things, but let's start with the Objects tab. And in the Logic section, there are different entities, things to control camera, all kinds of things, but we will need for a start a spawn point for ground units like tanks, Humvees, etc. So this is a spawn point unit ground, and when you click it, then you can click in the viewport just once, and you will see a shape of a tank. So this indicates a ground unit spawn point. You can move it. When you will see 4 tabs in here: select, move, rotate, scale. And when you click on the move tab, you will see the gizmos, and when you hover over an arrow and then click the left mouse button and drag, that will move your entity. When you click on a plane, it will move over this plane. You can also move it up and down. In the same time, you will see that those parameters in here change, and you could modify them by clicking on those. You can also reset them. If you mess things up, it's very easy to reset them just by right clicking on those buttons. As you can see, I resetted them to 0, and actually my 0 point is in the middle where the core has been spawned. So yeah, by default the core is in the 0, 0, 0, and the player spawn point is 0, 0, 25, so this is a bit above the core. Yeah, so let's position this spawn point somewhere where it makes sense. Let's rotate it towards the core. So by using the rotate gizmo, you can rotate it towards the core. You can see that angles here change. Yeah, no point in scaling this spawn point because it will have no effect. The spawn point is basically a point, so scaling this doesn't make much sense, but you can use later on scaling for scaling trees and other objects. So yeah, we have our first spawn point, and as you can see, it has a name: Logic Spawn Point Unit Ground 1. I would recommend to set up a good name for it, so you can then find it easily. When you have a lot of spawn points from many places, it's definitely good practice to have them named properly. and I usually name them from the sides. When you click, when you see here, you can switch to the game mode, and this is actually the camera view, the game camera view from the game. When you start moving, you can't rotate the camera in this game mode view. The purpose of that is to indicate exactly how it will to show you the perspective, how it will look like in the game when played. So as you can see, our spawn point is you have to travel to, let's say, north. It's not actually north, but I usually use it like that. So when something is, you have to travel up, I use a name from the world orientation. So I would use it spawn point unit ground, let's say north. Okay, I save it, and then you can see the name changed. Okay, now we have one spawn point for the tanks, but let's switch to the perspective mode. Let's create another one. So to create another spawn point, you could simply click in here, and then into the viewport you will have another spawn point. But let's delete that with the delete key. I can show you also a second way how to create things. When you click and hold the shift key on the keyboard, and then click on this and drag, you can duplicate any object or any group of objects, which is very handy for cloning trees, buildings. You can do things a lot faster than finding them on this list and placing in the viewport. So when you do that, just click execute, and you have your second spawn point. Let's place it, for example, in here. I zoomed in on it. Then I can rotate. You can also use the keyboard shortcuts to rotate and move things. Just Q, W, E, R. You can check the shortcuts in here. Okay, so we've got our second spawn point. Let's rename it. So this will be our east spawn point, and I definitely recommend, it's actually needed that you add your name to this part of the name, because the wave blocks that we'll be using later on use this part of the name to actually list the spawn points. So simply add the name here. Do not modify this part, because this is used for filtering. Okay, we've added our second spawn point, and now let's add a spawn point for error units. Error spawn point error unit can be found in here, and again simply click on the viewport, and you will see a error unit spawn point placed on the ground. But you don't want your error units to be traveling basically on the ground, so we will need to lift this up, and you can do this by just by dragging, or you can insert a value in here. And when placing error spawn points, I definitely recommend to have it at the same height as the player spawn point. So when you click on the player spawn point, you will see that it's on the height 25. It's actually in meters. One unit is 1 meter, so the player will fly on 25 meters above the ground level. And maybe make it a bit higher, let's say 30 meters, and place the air spawn point also on 30 meters above ground. Yeah, that's the basic height that we'll be using. Now let's place it in more suitable location. Here we can also rotate this towards the core. You don't have to rotate the spawn points towards the core because the units will rotate themselves, but it will take them. You can see some flickering if you don't do that, if the spawn points are visible on the screen. So it's best to rotate them towards the middle of the level. Okay, so now we have some air spawn point. Also, let's have a name for it, and you will see logic spawn point unit air. And now let's add north. Okay, so it's different. You know, it's spawn point unit ground north and spawn point unit air north. Okay, we have some spawn points, and now we need to create some basic mission flow in order to have some enemies spawned from those points. And the mission flow is created in the mission tab, which you can see in here. When you click on this tab, the viewport will disappear. You will see a mission flow view, which consists of blocks like that. And the basic controls are similar as in the viewport. So when you click and hold the middle mouse button, you can pan the view. Obviously you can't rotate it, but you can also zoom in, zoom out with your mouse scroll. And in order to move anything in this viewport, just click on it and drag, and yeah. The first block, as you can see pre-placed for you, is the mission start. Each level needs to have at least one mission start. You can have more mission starts, but at least one is required. And as you can see, there are different fields that you can pre-populate. This is money single, and money single is basically the amount of resources that the player will have when starting a mission. When you click, for example, once on this button, you will see that 300 units has been added. This is because each tower costs, each resource bar is equivalent to 300 units. It's not very intuitive, but well, this is how it's done. So if you want to give the player, for example, 4 resource bars, which then he can use to create 4 towers, you can click 4 times. You will see that there are 1200 resources, and this is an equivalent of 4 money bars. Yeah, there is also a place where you can set up money for the multi, so for cooperative mode, money for tower defense mode that we actually are planning to add in the future. You will see the player spawn point. This is actually the spawn point that we already had pre-placed, the core spawn point. There's some more advanced options like core spawns from script, but this is a basic tutorial, so let's not get into those at this point. So this is the mission start point, and in order to have some enemies coming at you, you will need to add some enemy waves. And as you can see, there is a mission events tab, and in order to add some enemies, let's click on the waves tab, and as you can see, there are different types of waves in here. So the basic one is the wave ground, and to click it, and this is actually a bit different than when placing objects. You can't just click it in the viewport, you have to hold and drag it into the mission flow, and then you will see a wave ground has appeared in here. Yeah, so we will need to have some basic setup for this wave ground, because at this point it doesn't do anything. So the first thing to set up is the spawn point, and when you click on this bar, you will see that we will have the 2 spawn points that we just created. Spawn point unit ground north and the east one. Those are the spawn points that we created. As you can see, spawn point unit ground north. and that's why the name is very important, not to erase this prefix, because this block actually is data driven and filters all the entities that are named this way. If you change this name, you would be able to see this in this tab. Yeah, okay, so when we have the spawn point, we also need to add some enemies. You add enemies by clicking on this button, and in this tab you can select an enemy. Let's select something small for a start. Usually we begin waves with small Humvees, small buggies, things like that. So this is one of our favorite units to start the mission. So let's select a small Humvee. Yeah, and let's keep those fields for now. We will explain them in later tutorials. What you need to do for now is to set up the amount of Humvees that you would like to spawn. Right now we have a 1 Humvee. Let's make it, for example, 5 Humvees. It will spawn 5 Humvees at the player. And what is here also very important is the delay. This is the delay in seconds in between the Humvees. So each Humvee will be spawned at 1 second intervals at this point. And you can definitely modify this parameter. The shorter you, the smaller the value, the shorter the periods between the Humvees. So let's leave it at 1 second for now. And if you'd like, you can add more units by clicking this button again. And for example, let's add a small buggy, or maybe make it a medium tank regular, so we can see the difference more clearly. So let's add 3 tanks, and the delay between the units really depends on how fast they move and how big they are. So the bigger the unit, the higher the delay you will have to set in order to avoid overlapping. So for the tank, let's make it like so. And now we have a wave that will spawn 5 Humvees and then 3 tanks. This is a very small wave, so maybe let's add some more units. If you want to quickly copy the units, you can click this plus in here. As you can see, duplicated this Humvee wave. You can also move it with those buttons. So right now our wave consists of 5 small Humvee units, then followed by 5 medium regular tanks, by 3 medium regular tanks, and then again followed by 5 small Humvees. Yeah, so this is the basic things that you need to set up for a wave. But at this point it's not connected to the mission flow. So in order for this to work, you need to connect this to the mission start, and you do this by clicking on those rectangles. As you can see, the arrow points towards this, and right now those blocks are connected. So this indicates that when the mission starts, it will start spawning those units. Yeah, and let's make it a bit more interesting. So you can click and drag to select this block, and then you can click Control C, copy this, and then Control V to actually paste. So as you can see, I've copied the whole wave again, so I don't have to set everything up. This is a really quick way to add more waves. Let's also connect this one in here, but we want this second wave to go from a different spawn point. Let's make them to spawn from the eastern spawn point. So you will have a wave from the north and a wave from the east. Yeah, and that's basically the thing to have the enemies spawn. So we can test this out. Let's click on the play button. As you can see, the level has been saved and the game already switches on. Okay, we've started the level. As you can see, enemies are incoming towards us. So there were some Humvees, there are some tanks, followed by the Humvees, and we have the same thing from the east. Yeah, so we can fight with them, or we can get back to the level editor to make it a bit more interesting. And we actually, when the mission starts, we actually usually add an intermission before those waves, because as you observed, spawning the units immediately at the player doesn't give him any time to see the level, to observe the paths, and to plan his defenses. So a good practice is to add a start point before the waves start spawning. In order to add a mission start, an intermission, sorry, you can do this in the mission state, where you can find the mission state intermission. So just click it and drag into the viewport. You will see an intermission. In order to have this working, you will need to connect it to the flow. You can easily reconnect the things by clicking the left control, click on the square. As you can see, I'm now dragging those arrows, and then I can connect it to mission intermission, then connect this like so. And now the game will start with an intermission where the player can plan his defenses, and when he's ready, he will be able to press the button and then face those enemies. So this is definitely recommended to place the intermission at the beginning of the mission. Yeah, so let's expand on those waves. So let's add another intermission in here and connect with those blocks right like here. So this indicates, when I connect those blocks with the intermission, it means that when the player destroys all of those enemies and all of those enemies, the intermission will start. So it won't start before all of those enemies are defeated. So it's really important to have those blocks connected to intermissions, though intermissions are the points where a save checkpoint happens. So it's really important also for the player, so he will be able to start playing from this intermission. Yeah, and to create another wave, we can add some more waves. Like, for example, we can copy this one, like so. Maybe change the setup a bit. Maybe let's make it a medium APC. Let's remove those. We just want the medium APCs. We will need to increase a bit the delay between them because they are slow and a bit larger. And let's add an air wave to our equation. We have an air spawn point, so let's add an air wave. So air wave can be found also in the waves, and click it and drag it, and you will see a wave air block in here. It's marked with a different color, so later on when you have a lot of blocks, you will be easily able to identify which ones are for the air, which ones are for the ground. So again, for the wave area, you also need to select a spawn point. We have a spawn point, logic spawn point unit are north, so let's select that one. And also for wave areas, for air waves that will be attacking the core, you will need to create a spline. Because the units that attack the core follow splines. So in order to have something in here, we actually have to create it first in the spline section. The spline section can be found in here. And yeah, when we switch, you will see the viewport. You won't be able to select any other objects when you're in the spline mode. As you can see, when I'm in the objects, I can select the objects. When I'm in splines, I cannot select other objects. I will be able to create to select only splines. Yeah, so let's create a spline. When you are creating a spline, it's best to have to zoom out your camera to see the whole wider area. And in order to create it, just create the create button, and when you click it, you will see that we are in the add vertex mode. So right now, when you're in this mode, when you click in the viewport, a spline vertex is created. When you click, you can add more points like so, just by clicking. And for example, when you're done, you can just click to none or right click it. I will right click on my mouse, and you see that I'm in this none mode. This is actually the selection mode. You see that when I'm clicking in the viewport, nothing happens, but when I can drag and select the vertices that I created previously. So yeah, this is really important to distinguish those two. But I'm still in the edit mode, so I won't be able to select anything else besides the vertices of that spline. Yeah, and let's create some kind of a name for it. So it will be our spline for air units, so let's call it spline air path north. Okay, and then we can leave the edit mode. As you can see, we are still in the spline mode, so we can't select any other objects, but we can select the spline. We can also move the spline, rotate the spline, and other things. So we will actually have to move this, because as you can see, it's created on the ground, and we want our units to follow a path in the air. So the best way to do it is to click on the move, and then simply like so make it into a position where our air units will be flying. It is definitely recommended to place the spline on the same height as the spawn point as the player, otherwise some weird things might happen, so I definitely recommend doing that. And yeah, we have some kind of a basic spline for our air units, but it's really not, it doesn't look really nice, so you can still go into the edit mode, and in the edit mode you can select each vertex and then move it like so. Actually, the first vertex should be very close to the spawn point, because the air units that will spawn will travel to this first vertex of the spline, and when they reach it, then they will start following the spline. So it's pretty important to have it close to the spawn point. If you place it like so, the units would spawn, then would go straight to that point and then start following the spline. So it's probably not what you would like to do. So yeah, let's place it like so. Let's edit those points. You can see that you can move them in a similar way like you would be moving objects. You can adjust those points. It's recommended to have it a smooth smooth curve, otherwise it will look weird if the air units have really tight corners. So yeah, and the last point should be somewhere near the core, because we want our air units to finally reach the core, to be able to reach the core. If you place the last point somewhere here, they will stop at this point, they won't be able to reach the core. So for basic air units that will be attacking the core, you need to do it like so. Yeah, let's modify also this one. Okay, and this is our basic spline for air units. We can exit the edit mode. Now we can switch to our mission mode, and if you've done everything right, there should be a spline airpath north in here to select. Okay, and what we still have to do is to add some units. You will see a drop down and another list of units, and the air units are there are two types of air units. The air units that need to follow a spline that will attack the core, and this is indicated by the postfix. And you see the large bomber core will attack the core, large helicopter core, medium helicopter core, small helicopter core. Those are the units that will follow a spline and attack the core. The other type of units are the medium fighter AA, medium gunship AA, large gunship AA. Those are the units that do not follow splines. They attack player directly, so they just need to have a spawn point. They don't need to have a spline. But for now we have a spline, we want our air units to attack the core, so let's select one of the types that can attack the core. Let's choose the medium helicopter core. This is our regular attack air unit. And in a similar way like we did with the wave ground units, let's add some more of those. Let's make it tank helicopters. Maybe let's increase the timing a little bit so they are not so tightly spawning from the spawn point. And we also need to connect this to the intermission. Okay, right now we have two waves built. The first one consists of Humvees and buggies. The second one are APCs and air units. And in order to have a complete full mission, we will need to create an end point for the mission. Otherwise the mission won't end. When you destroy those, the game will simply wait until forever, indefinitely. So in order to see the statistics, the score, you will need to have an endpoint, and it is added. It is found in the mission state by mission end. It's a very simple block, and you just need to connect those waves to the mission end. Yeah, and right now we have a full complete mission flow that can be played from the beginning to an end, consisting of two waves. We can easily check that by clicking play. We can test our creation this way. It's definitely recommended to do a lot of playtests, test things, because there are many things that can go wrong when you are setting up your blocks. When you do some errors, it won't behave as you would expect, so it's definitely good practice to test frequently. Okay, the level has loaded. As you can see, it begins with an intermission that we just set up. You can quickly switch to the level editor. So the mission has started, and now we're in the intermission phase in here. And we usually start a mission this way, so the player can see which enemies will be attacking, and from where. You can see that we have our 4 resource bars that we added to our mission flow. The player now can do some planning, do some building, and when we're good, we can start the waves. As you can see, they spawn. It means that everything went okay. And just quickly destroy them, so you can check whether the second wave will spawn correctly. So when we destroy them, an intermission should start. Okay, so we see this intermission start, and we are in the second waves. You can see that some air units will be coming from here that we set up, and some APCs. So let's start also to start point. Yeah, everything seems to be working fine. The helicopters are following our spline, the APCs are charging. Let's dispatch those quickly. Okay, we've won. So this means that our endpoint actually worked. And yeah, you can see that we've created a full working level that we were able to play and finish. When you click continue, you will be brought to the main menu with the workshop. So there's a list of levels. There's actually only one level, official tutorial level. Yeah, and now when we have our level that you can actually play, we can publish it. So the game already has been saved because we played it. Whenever we play the level with this button, it is saved. So the last part, when we are happy with our creation, we can simply publish this to SteamWorkshop for others to enjoy. So you will do this by selecting the file and Steam publish on Workshop. Yeah, and you will see that this is the basic window with the publishing for SteamWorkshop. You can publish this for private. This will be visible only for you when you're still working on your level. This is a good option to choose from, and you can later on change this to friends only, public only. You can change whether you want to publish the editor files and game files. If you select only game files, other people won't be able to open your level in their own editors and edit this. And we by default will choose the editor plus game, so other players will be able to open the level, check how it's built, make modifications and publish this as their own. You can also add description, update notes, and yeah, if you would place some description in here and some notes, then you can submit and it will go to SteamWorkshop. So yeah, this was the basic tutorial for how to create a working level, and yeah, thanks for watching. We'll be following up with some more advanced tutorials later on. Please let us know which parts of the level editor would be the most important for you, which one you need explaining. So we'll be definitely hearing from you on the SteamWorkshop pages. So yeah, please let us know, and thanks for watching. Bye.